When Angela showed up at her daughter's 5th birthday, after a messy divorce, she wasn't there to cause trouble. She just wanted to see her daughter, even for a moment. She came with one simple gift, and the quiet hope of holding her little girl, just once. But in front of everyone, her ex's mother, Madame Cecilia, crushed her gift and her dignity. Then a mysterious millionaire stepped forward. The same man whose life Angela had once saved with a single act of kindness. And in that moment, everything changed. The sound of children laughing echoed from a colorful tent where balloons floated gently in the breeze. A big banner hung over the gate. "Happy 5th birthday, Bella!" Nearby, children bounced excitedly on a bright, inflatable castle, squealing with joy. A cheerful clown in a vibrant costume juggled and danced, drawing giggles from the little ones gathered around. The entire scene was bursting with fun and celebration. Angela stood outside the fence, heart beating fast. She held a small pink gift bag close to her chest. Inside the bag was a handmade bracelet. She made it herself with tiny beads that spelled her daughter's name, Bella. Angela wasn't invited. She knew that. But she came anyway. It had been 7 long months since she last saw Bella. 7 painful months since the court said she was unfit to be a mother. Her ex-husband, Mark, and his mother, Madame Cecilia, took Bella away from her. All Angela had now were memories, and the hope of seeing her little girl, even for a second, on her birthday. She walked in quietly through the side gate. She didn't want to cause trouble. She just wanted to give Bella the bracelet and show her that her mother still loved her. Angela looked around the party. There she was, Bella, wearing a fluffy purple dress, spinning in circles, her cheeks full of frosting. She looked so happy, so innocent. Angela's eyes filled with tears. She took a small step forward. "What are you doing here?" A sharp voice cut through the air. Everyone turned. It was Madame Cecilia, tall, cold, and proud. She walked toward Angela with anger in her eyes. "You were told not to come near this family again," she snapped. "You are not invited. You are not wanted." Angela took a deep breath and said softly, "I just came to give Bella a gift, that's all." She held out the pink bag carefully. Her eyes flicked to Bella again. Her little girl was still playing near the cake table, unaware of the storm building just steps away. But Madame Cecilia wasn't moved. She sneered and looked down at the gift. "You think this cheap thing can get you back into her life?" "You are nothing, Angela. You lost your place when Mark left you. You are not Bella's mother anymore." Angela trembled. She saw the party guests watching. Some looked uncomfortable. Others took out their phones. Nobody stepped in. "I don't want to fight," Angela whispered. "I just made this bracelet for her birthday." Madame Cecilia stepped closer, her heels clicking loudly. Her pearls shined in the sun, but her face stayed cold. Then, with no warning, she slapped the gift bag from Angela's hand. The bracelet rolled out onto the ground. Angela gasped and knelt to pick it up. Crack! Madame Cecilia stepped on it with her heel. The bracelet broke into tiny pieces. Angela froze. Her heart broke all over again. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she knelt, silently gathering the shattered pieces of the only gift she had left to give. With trembling hands, she picked up the tiny beads one by one, her fingers brushing the grass, her vision blurred by grief. The guests watched. Still, no one moved. No one helped. "Clean up your mess and leave," Madame Cecilia said cruelly. Angela looked up at Mark, her ex-husband, was watching from the drink stand, arms folded. Marissa, his new wife, whispered something in his ear. He glanced briefly at Angela, expressionless, not a word, not even a blink of sympathy. He saw everything. He said nothing. Angela stood up slowly. Her knees were dusty, her dress wrinkled. "I'll go," she said, voice low. "I don't want to ruin the party." She turned toward the exit. No one tried to stop her. But just before she reached the gate, "That was a cruel thing to do." The voice wasn't loud, but it stopped everyone. It came from the back of the garden. A man stood there, tall, well-dressed in a dark suit, his hair slicked back. His eyes calm but strong, he stepped forward, his gaze locked not on Angela, but on Madame Cecilia. "Oh, you didn't step on that bracelet because it was worthless," he said to Madame Cecilia. "You stepped on it because your heart is." Gasps echoed through the garden. "Who are you?" Madame Cecilia snapped. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked over to Angela and gently picked up the broken bracelet beads from her hand, handling them as if they were made of gold. He turned them in his palm, quietly inspecting the damaged gift. "This was made with love," he said softly. "And it was destroyed in public, for pride." Angela blinked, unable to speak. Madame Cecilia crossed her arms. "You don't know her. You have no idea who you're defending." Finally, the man looked up. His voice remained calm. "Actually, I do." He stood now, tall beside Angela. 10 years ago," he said, turning to the crowd. "This woman gave me food when I had none. She looked me in the eye when I was nothing. She didn't know who I'd become. She simply cared." He turned back to Angela, eyes gentler now. "You may not remember me, but I remember you." Angela's lips parted in confusion. He smiled gently. "My name is David." Angela's mouth opened in shock. She whispered, "I don't remember." David nodded. "That's okay. But I remember every word you said. And today, I'm standing here because no one deserves to be humiliated for loving their child." He reached out his hand. Angela hesitated. Then she took it. For the first time that day, someone was truly standing with her. David turned to the crowd. "How many of you watched what happened and stayed quiet?" People shifted uncomfortably. "Kindness," he said, "shouldn't be harder than silence." He turned back to Madame Cecilia. "Your wealth doesn't give you the right to destroy others. You tried to erase Angela, but I see her, and I won't let her be silenced again." The crowd was stunned. David turned to Angela. "Would you like to give Bella her gift?" Angela looked down at the crushed bracelet. Only a few beads were still on the string. The rest were broken. "It's ruined," she whispered. David smiled. "Even broken things can be beautiful, especially when they're made with love." He handed her the broken bracelet. They walked together toward the cake table. The crowd stepped aside. From the other side of the garden, Bella looked up and saw them. She ran straight into Angela's arms. "Mommy!" Angela dropped to her knees and hugged her tightly, crying softly. "Why are you crying, Mommy?" Bella asked. "Because I'm happy to see you, baby." David stood back, watching. Madame Cecilia stepped forward, fuming. "This is not your moment. You're confusing the child." Angela started to speak, but David stepped in again. "Actually, Bella needs to know her mother came. Even when she wasn't welcome. That's love. And that's what she'll remember." Angela looked at David with tears in her eyes. He smiled. "You're not alone anymore." Later that evening, Angela sat on the pavement outside the party venue. Her knees were pulled up to her chest. Her dress was wrinkled, the hem dirty from kneeling. She still held the broken bracelet in her hand. Inside, the music played. Children laughed, but her daughter was gone. The moment was over. Angela shook as she tried to hold in her tears. The pain wasn't new, but today had ripped her open again. Then a gentle voice came beside her. "You shouldn't be out here like this." It was David. He had left the party, just to sit with her. Angela wiped her face quickly. "You don't have to be here." "Maybe not," he said softly. "But I want to be." He sat beside her on the pavement. They said nothing for a while, just shared the silence. Then Angela looked at him and asked, "You said we met before, but I still don't remember." David smiled and reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a small folded piece of paper, old and worn. He handed it to her. Angela opened it slowly. Her breath caught. It said, "Wishing you a better tomorrow. You matter." It was her own handwriting. Her memory returned. Years ago, she had given food to a homeless man sitting in the rain outside a cafe. She had written that note and slipped it inside. "You kept this?" she whispered. "I carried it every day," David said softly. "That note reminded me I was still human, It gave me the strength to stand up again, to believe I was worth saving. And today, I'm a successful man because of you. Because of the kindness you showed a stranger when you had nothing to gain." Angela covered her mouth, tears forming again. Not from sadness this time, but from the sheer weight of the moment. "Why today?" she asked. He looked at her gently. "Because I finally found you, and I wasn't going to lose you again." Angela sat quietly beside David, holding the note tightly in her hand. Her heart felt full, heavy with feelings she hadn't let herself feel in a long time. Hope, warmth, dignity. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Oh, you don't have to say anything," David replied gently. "Just let me return the kindness. Just for today." He reached out his hand. "Come with me, somewhere warm." Angela hesitated. Then she looked at him. The man who didn't have to care, but did. She took his hand, and for the first time in a very long time, she felt seen. The ride was quiet. Angela sat in the passenger seat of a sleek black SUV. David at the wheel. The city passed by slowly, shops closing for the evening, the glow of headlights beginning to reflect in puddles. She clutched the slightly damaged gift box in her lap, still not knowing what to say. David didn't force conversation. He simply drove, the soft hum of the engine and occasional clicks of the indicator filling the silence. Eventually, he turned into a quiet street lined with trees and modest homes. At the end stood a gated compound with a single-story house. Clean, modern, peaceful. He stopped the car, got out, and walked around to open her door. Angela hesitated. "You don't have to do all this." David smiled gently. "You already did it for me. I'm just returning the favor. 10 years late." He led her inside. The house was warm, softly lit. It smelled of coffee and books. A gentle breeze flowed in through a half-open window. Angela stood in the doorway, overwhelmed by the quiet comfort. "This is beautiful." David set down his keys and offered her a seat. "It's not much, but it's mine, and it's open to anyone who needs peace." Angela sat on the edge of a couch, unsure if she should really be there. David returned with 2 mugs of tea and sat across from her. "You look like someone who hasn't rested in a long time." Angela laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because it was true. "I haven't," she admitted. "Not since they took Bella. Not since the court said I wasn't fit." David's brow furrowed. "You lost custody?" Angela nodded. "Mark's family. They had better lawyers, more money, influence. They said I was unstable, that I didn't belong in Bella's life. And your ex-husband? He let them?" Angela looked down. "He stopped fighting for me the moment his mother spoke against me. He married someone new within the year." David leaned back, watching her quietly. "That day at the cafe, I was ready to give up, but your kindness kept me going. I promised myself, if I ever saw you again, I'd stand for you the way you stood for me." Angela couldn't speak. Her eyes filled with tears again. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked. "Because you gave me a reason to live," he said. "Now I want to help you get your daughter back." The next morning, Angela woke up in a clean guest room. Her clothes had been washed. The broken bracelet was now taped and placed gently on the table. David walked in holding 2 folders. "I made some calls," he said. "My legal team wants to help reopen your case. Completely free. No cost at all." Angela blinked in disbelief. "David, you don't have to." "I want to," he said firmly. "You didn't have power in that courtroom before, but now you have me." Soon a strong lawyer named Beatrice joined them. She reviewed Angela's case and said, "They didn't win with truth. They won with tricks. But we're going to fix this." They began gathering every piece of evidence they could. Receipts, voice notes, and testimonies from people who had witnessed how Cecilia treated Angela during the marriage. David even hired a private investigator. What he uncovered changed everything. The psychiatric report used to discredit Angela in court had been written by a doctor who sat on the board of Cecilia's foundation. That's a clear conflict of interest. David said quietly. And no one disclosed it to the court. David wasn't just helping in court. He helped her heal too. Every morning he left small notes for Angela. Bella still needs you. This is not your end. You are doing better than you think. She didn't know how he found the words, but they reached her like sunlight through cracks. He never pressured her. He never pitied her. He just showed up, again and again. One day Angela walked past a spare room in David's house and froze. Inside, it had been turned into a child's bedroom, with books, toys, a pink lamp, and a bunny on the bed. You made this for Bella? She asked, tears in her eyes. She'll need a space of her own when she visits, David said. But what if we lose? Angela whispered. Then we keep fighting, he replied. But you don't prepare for failure, Angela. You prepare for what you deserve. Angela looked around the room. For the first time in years, she let herself believe that maybe things could change. The courthouse was a gray, square building, the kind of place where hope had once gone to die for Angela. She had walked out of here over a year ago with nothing but heartbreak and shame, stripped of her title as mother, accused of being unstable, unworthy, unfit. Now, she stood at those same steps again. But this time she wasn't alone. David was beside her, dressed in a dark navy suit, calm and collected. His lawyer, Beatrice, walked ahead of them with a fierce focus in her eyes, carrying a folder thick with evidence. Angela adjusted her blazer, the one David had bought for her, saying softly, You walk in there like you belong, because you do. Inside, the courtroom was filled with echoes and murmurs. Mark sat at the other side, his face hard to read. Beside him, Cecilia sat in all her usual elegance, lips pressed tight, eyes burning with quiet defiance. Angela took a deep breath. Then the judge walked in. Everyone stood, then sat. Beatrice stepped forward. Your Honor, she began, we asked to reopen the custody case. The original ruling was influenced by fraud. She held up documents. The psychiatrist who wrote Angela was unstable is connected to Madame Cecilia's foundation. They made donations to his clinic. This wasn't declared in court. Gasps filled the courtroom. We also have a new report from a certified court psychologist, Beatrice added. It shows Angela is mentally stable, responsible, and still deeply bonded to her daughter. The judge turned to Angela. Would you like to speak? Angela stood. Her heart beat fast, but her voice was clear. Last time I stood here, I was judged because I didn't have money, because I cried, because I loved too much. But I've never stopped being Bella's mother. She turned to Mark, eyes firm. You promised to protect me, but when they tore me down, you said nothing. She turned back to the judge. I don't want pity. I just want to show my daughter that I never stopped fighting for her. The courtroom fell silent. Then the judge said, There is strong reason to believe the original ruling was unfair. I grant immediate supervised visitation to Miss Angela Jacobs. A full custody review will follow. We must not let wealth rewrite the truth. Angela gasped. Cecilia froze. Mark looked away, ashamed. And under the table, David reached for her hand. She held it tightly. Outside the courtroom, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted. But Angela didn't care. She looked up at the sky, the same one that had watched her suffer, and whispered, I'm still her mother, and no one can take that away again. David smiled beside her. You did it. Angela turned to him, tears in her eyes. No, we did. A year later, in a bright green park filled with balloons and handmade signs, Bella ran happily across the grass, full of laughter and light. The court had given Angela full custody. Her daughter was finally home. Not just in her arms, but in her life, where she truly belonged. A big sign said, Bella's 6th birthday, with Mom. Angela stood in the middle of it all, wearing a light blue dress. Her hair was pinned back softly, and for once, her smile came naturally. She didn't have to force it. Joy kept rising inside her like sunshine. Bella ran toward her with frosting on her cheeks, a balloon string in one hand, and a paper crown sliding off her head. "Mommy, look what I made." Angela bent down and picked her up. "It's beautiful, just like you." Not far away, David stood under a tree, holding a tray of juice boxes. He wore a white shirt and watched the moment like he'd waited his whole life to see it. Angela caught his eye, and he nodded. They didn't need words. He had helped make this moment real. Then something unexpected happened. At the edge of the park, Mark and Madame Cecilia showed up. They stood just outside the fence, looking unsure and out of place. Mark held a small gift wrapped in silver paper. Cecilia stood straight and quiet, her eyes serious. Mark stepped forward. "Angela, we came to say something." Cecilia took a breath and said, "I was wrong about you, about everything." Angela's face stayed calm. "You humiliated me. You took my child. You tried to erase me." Cecilia looked down. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I hope you'll let us try to do better, for Bella's sake." Angela looked at her daughter, laughing and playing in the grass. Then she turned back and said softly, "I forgive you, but I'll always remember what it cost me." She looked at David, "Because through all the pain, I found something stronger than revenge." "I found family." Mark had nothing to say. Cecilia wiped a tear. Angela turned back to the party. The music played again. Children laughed. The wind moved gently through the trees. Angela looked at David and whispered, "This is her real birthday, her real beginning." David smiled. "And yours too." They stood together, a mother, a daughter, and a man who helped her heal. They were not connected by blood, but by love and choice. The music rose. The joy grew. Angela smiled like a woman who had finally come home. Later that day, they walked through the park, hand in hand. The sun was warm. The breeze was soft. They passed a bench where Angela had once sat alone, dreaming of seeing her daughter again. She stopped and said, "I used to come here and pretend I wasn't falling apart." David asked gently, "And now?" Angela watched Bella skip ahead, laughing. "Now I know, I made it." They sat on the grass. Bella handed Angela a cinnamon bun. "Mommy, I saved the biggest one for you." Angela laughed and hugged her tight. "Thank you, my sweet girl." As Bella chased butterflies, Angela turned to David and said, "I used to think family meant blood or marriage. But now I know family is who stays, who believes in you, who says you belong." David nodded. "And you became the kind of woman who helps others believe again." He handed her a small card. Angela opened it. It read, "You are already enough." She closed her eyes and breathed in deeply. She wasn't broken anymore. She had been rebuilt, with love, with faith, with people who never gave up on her. As night fell, they walked home. Bella was in the middle, holding both their hands. They didn't look like a perfect family, but they were something better. A family made by choice. A love built on trust. A story that turned pain into peace. The stars came out, and under their light, they walked forward. Together, the end. If this story touched you, please like, comment, and subscribe for more true-to-life stories of love, loss, and redemption. You never know. Your kindness could change someone's world.